A lot of things changed in week 1. What didn't was our ability to correctly predict games. We both went 10-5 in the first week of the NFL season, and we'll be looking to improve that in week 2. Starting things off, we've got the Las Vegas Raiders traveling on up to Baltimore to face off against the Ravens. And look, the Raiders' defensive line got embarrassed in large part by Joe Alt, but Rashawn Slater certainly contributed. They were shut down and rushing outside, trying to get pressure on Herbert from that edge position without stunting. The run defense did not look special. J.K. Dobbins ripped off 2 massive runs, and I think it'll be easier for them to generate a pass rush, to generate pressure, and to generate a solid run defense against the Ravens. The Ravens' O-line did not look good week 1. They'll look better defensively. On the other side of the ball, J.K. Dobbins, I feel like he's a little bit easier to tackle than Derrick Henry at the line of scrimmage. He's shorter, his contact balance point is a lot lower. If you can hit him low, there's a chance he bounces, or there's a chance you bounce off. If you hit Derrick Henry low, you're probably going to tackle him. Having said all that, I have no faith in the Raiders offense. I don't have any faith in Gardner Minshew whatsoever. And with the exception of a well-blocked gadget play, some would say a well-held gadget play, and a complete blown coverage, they played really well against the Chiefs' offense. I think the Ravens should be able to shut down the Raiders. Offensively, Lamar's going to do what he wants. Derrick Henry presumably will have a slightly larger role in his second game as a Raven, and I don't see this one being close. The only way it stays within 1 score is if the clock keeps moving, if the Raiders run the ball a lot, and we know the Ravens are running it a lot, so the game is over by like 3:15. Give me the Ravens in a one-sided affair.
Well, you're dismissing just how good the Chiefs' pass rush is when you say the Ravens' offensive line looked not good in week 1. Did it look great? No, but they still have a very good offensive line. And when you have the Chargers that average 6.5 yards a carry against the Raiders in week 1, and you have a Ravens offense that has Lamar Jackson, has Derrick Henry, it is going to be an easy victory for the Ravens. And I think an element to what we saw from the Ravens in week 1 when it comes to their rushing attack specifically is that they have not really worked Derrick Henry into their system, into their offense, incorporating him bouncing off Lamar Jackson, using that to push the ball down the field to all of the weapons they have on offense. We saw Isaiah Likely break loose in week 1, but Mark Andrews didn't really get things going. Zay Flowers had some splash plays, but they didn't truly show what their offense is going to be down the line.
Well, they went for 37 yards. They were not large splashes. They were little ripple plays.
But I think over these first 4 weeks, we're going to see the Ravens offense go through different evolutions where Derrick Henry starts to get involved more. They craft better their play calling, incorporating Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, creating some type of fusion there. I expect them to win. I'm still high on the Raiders to not be the worst team in the NFL this season, but they did lose Malcolm Kuntz, and Tyree Wilson got banged up in week 1, so they also are even weaker at their pass rusher position, even though still have Christian Wilkins and Max Crosby, which are the 2 important ones, but the Ravens should win, especially at home.
I think, honestly, the Chargers might be better at running in between the tackles than the Ravens. The Ravens' O-line had a lot of turnover this offseason. They replaced 3 players. Even if you ignore the illegal formation, they were not that good. I don't get where this, the Ravens still have a good O-line. That's a name brand good O-line comp right there. We will have to wait and see how good this new look unit is. The only way it stays close, though, is if the clock is rolling and the Raiders somehow develop a bit of a run game, or Minshew doesn't get sacked horrifically in the pocket. I am skeptical one way or the other.
Now, Isaiah wanted to give the Panthers a chance in order for us to be able to rip them, to allow me to rip them. They are a bad football team, and they don't have much of a chance heading into this game. They're playing a Chargers team that looked much better than I expected them to be right away in week 1, and the Chargers, they're going to beat down, demoralize this fan base, the Panthers organization, and after this game, we may be thinking the Panthers are going to go winless in 2024. What the Chargers were able to do on the ground against the Raiders is going to be even worse against the Panthers since they don't have Derek Brown. And if Alontae Taylor for the sacks can get 3 sacks on Bryce Young, imagine what Khalil Mack is going to do. This is going to be one of those games where he has 4 to 6 sacks, and we're left wondering if he is for sure still a top 5 pass rusher in the NFL, even at his old age. I think this is one of the safest locks of the week. I think the Chargers are going to go to Carolina, and they're going to win this game.
Yeah, when I said give them a week, I didn't look forward and see the Chargers on their schedule. And sure, it's a new young team, brand new coaches, whatever. They're still going to impose their will on the ground. They are much better at tackle. The interior of the O-line's not great, but without Derek Brown, I doubt the Panthers are going to be able to exploit that one way or the other. I find it hard to believe Khalil Mack will have 5-6 sacks just because it's supposed to rain, so I think both these teams are going to shell up a little bit and run the ball. This will be the worst attended home opener of any team this season. Terrible Panthers team at Carolina. Fans aren't that passionate to begin with. But they're going to demoralize the Panthers fans. The Panthers fans are already demoralized.
That is fair.
They have no more room to go down. The expectations are very low. In the rain, it's going to be a rough one. I think Bryce Young looks better because simply he cannot look worse. I think the Panthers defense looks better, particularly against the pass, simply because they cannot look worse. Tackling yourself as a Saints offensive player runs by you on the sideline was an all-time low for the Panthers defense. That will probably not be replicated in week 2. Hopefully, Young can string a few plays together, make himself look like a competent NFL quarterback, and get the Panthers something to build on. Rolling on over into the Saints versus the Cowboys, two teams which dominated the worst performing offenses in week 1. And one might be inclined to say the Saints have a shot. They scored 37, or they won by 37 last week. They're a good team. They got Chris Olave and Alvin Kamara and Rashid Shaheed and blah, 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 blah. Fuaga looked good at tackle. Whatever. I'm not moved. Jadeveon Clowney is a good run stopper and can generate pressures. He's no Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons is going to impose his will on Fuaga, on Derek Carr, is going to sack him at least twice, get him on the ground, stall that Saints offense. I think the offense is going to move backwards. I talked about Dennis Allen needing a Chinese dictionary last week. Well, it got delayed in the post. He beat up on the Panthers. The Chinese dictionary has been delivered. He needs to start brushing up. The Cowboys are going to dominate the Saints on that side of the ball. Flip it over. I don't have a ton of faith in the Cowboys offense. Certain members of the line performed better than I expected in week 1, but that was because the Browns defense got left on the field and was forced to defend hard against the run because of how much of a deficit their offense put them in. But if they can score 26 points like they did against the Browns, that will be more than enough to beat the Saints. Give me the Cowboys in the win here.
Well, I said in our last video that people were over-hating Derek Carr and that he's still around an average to slightly below average quarterback in the NFL that you can win with. And I think last week, even though it was against the Panthers, he threw 3 touchdowns, proved that he's a capable quarterback in the NFL, and he isn't just some scrub or bum like Deshaun Watson or Daniel Jones, where an offense can't even function with. The Saints are going to threaten the Cowboys to a certain extent in this one. But when it comes to actually winning this game, I'm going to have to agree with Isaiah because the Cowboys just have more high-end talent all over the field. CeeDee Lamb, you take over Chris Olave. I think they have a much more talented and better defense, better offensive line. The only place the Saints really have a talent advantage is at the running back position, where the Cowboys are still, while they look better than expected in week 1, an older Zeke Elliott, whatever Rico Dottle brings to the table. If this game was in New Orleans, I think the Saints would have maybe a better chance, but I think it is a fairly easy victory for the Cowboys, but I do think it'll be competitive. I don't think it's going to be a Cowboys-Browns game we saw in week 1. Some people may be so impressed with the Buccaneers in week 1 because Baker threw for 4 touchdowns. They reestablished themselves maybe as still the best team in the NFC South, but they were playing a Commanders team that chipped off all of their talent midway through last season, a Commanders team that has a brand new head coach, a rookie quarterback, and a solid offense around that rookie quarterback, but relatively inexperienced, trying to establish a culture, trying to establish an offensive system. So the more experienced team with veterans all over the place, of course they're going to beat that team in week 1. But now they're headed to Detroit, an away game against the top dog in the NFC that has just as much experience, that has a defense that has gotten better every single season. Aiden Hutchinson looks more dominant than ever. And finally, Jameson Williams has taken the next step at receiver. So they have 2 great receivers, a great running back duo, the offensive line, the defense. The Buccaneers, I think, have established that they're still going going to be a competitive team in the NFC that is going to win 8 or 9 games, but it was against the Commanders. I don't think we can guarantee they're going to compete with the Lions, Eagles, or the top dogs in the NFC for whatever that title is. So I expect the Lions to win. But again, I think it should be competitive.
You said established like 5 times there. Most people would tend to think the top dog in the NFC would be the team which beat the Lions in the playoffs and went to the Super Bowl and dominated their Week 1 matchup. That's just a personal opinion of mine. But Jameson Williams, very good performance. He was the best Lions offensive player outside the lines. I know Montgomery played well. I'm going to wait a few weeks for proclaiming him as an elite receiver. He was going up against a Rams team which has an all-right pass rush and a relatively weak secondary. You'd think if they're dedicating as many resources as they did to Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown, he'd get open. I might be able to get open in that setting. And I may have been underrating the Buccaneers just a twinge going into the year. Their defense a little bit younger than I gave it credit for, a little bit more explosive. The veterans still key players, but are guiding as opposed to dictating, if that makes sense to the folks at home. Baker Mayfield, great performance in Week 1 against one of the worst defenses in the National Football League. Still a defense in the National Football League. Having said all that, the Lions can run very effectively outside the tackles. Doesn't matter which tackle, they can kick the ball outside. I know it is hard to run up the middle on the Buccaneers, in large part due to Vita Vea. But at the end of the day, if you can generate a good double team, chip him out of there, Montgomery is going to have 4 or 5 yards of pop against these Buccaneers linebackers. The Lions will be able to run their offensive system however they desire. Maybe Amon-Ra gets a bit more usage. Maybe he gets double and triple teamed again. Maybe Laporta gets a bit more usage. Now that Williams has posed a legitimate threat to stretch the field, maybe he doesn't. But Detroit will have an answer offensively. On the other side of the ball, I do not see this Buccaneers team moving anywhere close to as smoothly up and down the field against this Lions defense as they did against the Commanders. Hutch is going to generate pressure effectively. It does not matter where he's lined up. On the rookie, on the dude from North Dakota and Mock, or if he lines up on top of Tristan Wirfs for some reason at left tackle. He will generate pressures on Baker Mayfield. He will convert sacks. The secondary played well Week 1 against a talented Rams team. They will play well in Week 2 against a talented Buccaneers team. This is going to be a one-sided game. If I had to pick one to get away from a team early, it'd be this one. I think the Buccaneers offense sputters out the gate. The Lions get out to a 2-score lead and then just road great and sail on to victory. Give me the Lions in a pretty one-sided affair here.
Well, the Lions did not completely dominate the Rams last week. They needed overtime in order to beat the Rams. And this is a healthy Buccaneers team coming into the game with momentum. I don't think it's a game they dominate, but they're relentless. They have all of the talent in the world, and they've built year after year. So that's why I still think the Lions win, but I don't think it's going to be some blowout like you're assuming it's going to be.
There does be a blowout in domination. One day you'll be able to figure that out. Speaking of domination and a blowout, though, the Colts are taking on the Packers. And this was said to be a good game, Anthony Richardson, a lot of faults in his game, cannot complete a pass between 10 and 40 yards. Outside of 40 yards and inside of 10 yards, pretty good. In that range, not so good. Dynamic threat on the ground, got Jonathan Taylor, all those great receivers. The O-line did not play as well as I thought they would, but they're still an all-right unit. Going up against a Packers offense with 18 different wide receivers who are apparently all number ones, with Josh Jacobs, with good tight ends, and with Jordan Love. Oh wait, Jordan Love is not playing. We're getting the Malik Willis show. And I'm not one of those people who was ridiculously high on Malik Willis prior to the draft and now feels the need to bash him because they were so woefully wrong and are trying to make up for it in some misguided way. He's Malik Willis. We know what he is. We don't need to harp on it. The Packers offense will be lucky to score 14 points. Josh Jacobs is going to be keyed in on very, very hard, and I doubt that'll make much of a difference in the passing attack. The Colts will be able to move the ball on the ground, will be able to move it against a secondary which got torched by the Eagles and would have got torched even harder if Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown didn't slip on 2 separate plays leading to interceptions on that Brazilian turf. It's going to be a one-sided affair. Give me the Colts in this one. If I had to guarantee a win, this would be one of the wins I guarantee.
This game does not need a lot of discussion. When Malik Willis is your starting quarterback, doesn't even have a full offseason, is not heading into the season as the Packers' full-time quarterback, he just does not have the reps. And when you're playing a Colts defense that hit CJ Stroud 10 times, sacked him 4 times, and you're a player who holds on to the ball way too long, you're going to get even harder by this Colts defense. I think he's going to get sacked upwards of 6 times. He's going to get hit maybe 15 times in this game when he even runs the ball. He's not elite at passing the ball. He's not elite as Anthony Richardson at running the ball, or Justin Fields even. So no experience in this system relative to what a backup quarterback might typically have. And they're playing a Colts team that has a good defense, has a good offense. This would also be one of my locks of the week.
The Packers' path to victory is this. Joe Mixon torched the weak Colts front seven, or seemingly weak Colts front seven, in week 1. The difference is he had an elite passing attack which had to be respected backing him up. If that was due to the passing attack, then yeah, they're going to be able to cue in on Josh Jacobs and shut that down real quick. If they're actually this bad at stopping the run though, if DeForest Buckner is mega washed like he appeared to be, maybe they can make this game close. Maybe they can keep the clock rolling, get things on the ground, have a somewhat competitive matchup. Or maybe Anthony Richardson turns the ball over. That is a real possibility, which neither of us has really touched on. He can absolutely put this game back in the Packers' hands if he is forced to throw the ball. I don't think either of those things are going to happen, but the path to victory is not completely guaranteed for Indianapolis.
You just said it was a lock, but
if I had to make a lock, hey, I am providing all options. It's not, look, these are NFL teams. With the exception of maybe the Panthers, they can compete with each other.
It would take a disaster class from Anthony Richardson in order for the Colts to lose this game.
You saying he's not capable of that?
Under these circumstances, no.
I don't know, man.
Fast forward.
He's shown the talent.
Next up, Browns versus the Jaguars. And the story of this game is a team that has a quarterback that doesn't seem to be capable of playing the position anymore, at least at an NFL level, and a quarterback that hasn't truly lived up to his pre-draft hype, kind of crumbled in week 1 and took the loss to the Dolphins. If the Browns are able to get anything going offensively, I'd maybe be inclined to pick them to win this one just because of how good their defense can be and how relatively unimpressive Trevor Lawrence has been in that Jaguars offense relative to expectations. But because I have no faith in Deshaun Watson to return to anything close to when he was a great quarterback, and I have faith in the Jaguars' talent, still some, the Jaguars should win this game.
At the end of the day, this game's going to come down to whose front seven can generate more pressure on the opposing quarterback. And I think the Jaguars' O-line, at least the tackles, are not capable of blocking Myles Garrett or Smith on the outside. But that really doesn't matter because it looks like the Browns are going to be rolling into this week without Jedrick Willis once again. That looks like a certainty you'll miss it. And maybe Jack Conklin doesn't play either. If they are down both their tackles once again, Trayvon Walker and the quarterback or the edge rusher formerly known as Josh Allen are going to absolutely dominate a set of backups. They will put a ton of pressure on Deshaun Watson. And on the human side of things, I'm almost inclined to feel bad for Deshaun Watson. One, because he had 2 backup tackles trying to save him from Micah Parsons, but he had 2 people close to him die this past weekend. If it were anyone else, I could maybe make an excuse for him and say, well, look, that's how it is. You can expect not everyone's going to be Brett Favre on Father's Day. But then, of course, another massage case comes out and he loses any ounce of empathy I can give to him. He's not ready to be an NFL quarterback. He will never be ready again to be an NFL quarterback. I wish him the worst in his future endeavors, and hopefully that $95 million he is fully guaranteed sinks the Cleveland Browns franchise in future years. Looking at the Jaguars, Brian Thomas played great. Tank Bigsby played very well, and his increased role was the most effective running back they had, which is very impressive considering they also employ Travis Etienne. The Jaguars' offense should cruise thanks to the Browns' defense being left on the field for long stretches at a time. And you blame Trevor Lawrence for that collapse. He's not the one who fumbled that ball into the end zone. If you're going to point fingers at someone on that Jaguars team, I would not point them at Trevor Lawrence for the Week 1 loss to Miami.
It's not so much that Trevor Lawrence is completely to blame or that he was even really bad in Week 1. I mean, he had that very impressive throw to Brian Thomas Jr., but I still think we haven't seen him take the next step where his highlights, the production he has, what the Jaguars offense does week in and week out is wildly impressive, where you're like, that team can make a Super Bowl push, that team can beat Kansas City, or that team can compete with Baltimore. We still haven't seen that yet.
You mean we didn't see that when he threw for 4 touchdowns in the second half of a playoff game and pulled off a 25-point comeback?
That happened 2 years ago.
I think you are the one who has properly set expectations and now are penalizing him for it, much like you did Malik Willis. On to an important game, though. We've got the 49ers who are headed on up to Minnesota. And suddenly, after both these teams dominated 2 New Jersey-based New York football organizations, this game is a lot more compelling than it was this time last week. Both these teams are a little bit hobbled going into this game. Christian McCaffrey, I'm inclined to say, is not going to play. Anything involving a running back's Achilles, particularly one as explosive as CMC, I feel like should be treated with an abundance of caution. I think Jordan Mason is going to be the feature back once again. Speaking of Jordan Addison, bad ankle sprain, MetLife turf got him. His status is a bit more up in the air than Christian McCaffrey's. I think he'll play. If he plays, that changes this game a lot, but I'll get into that in my prediction. The 49ers can ground the ball out. They were impressive in week 1. Part of that is the Jets defense playing passive, but their O-line looked great. I trashed them for not being good outside of Trent Williams all the time. They looked like a well-run unit. They were moving D linemen at will. They were climbing to linebackers. They were giving Mason the shots he needed to dictate contact and exploit bad matchups with flat-footed linebackers or those in the secondary who were not prepared to tackle a 5'11", 230-pound running back. The secondary, full of studs. Ivan Pace and Blake Cashman, very good linebackers. They're both a little bit undersized. If Mason is dictating contact on them, it's going to be a long, long night. They've still got Debo. They've still got Brandon Ayuk, who presumably will not be dropping open touchdown passes. Kittle, amazing blocking tight end, had his splash plays, to quote my co-host, in last week's game. This unit is going to score points unless they can generate a lot of pressure on Brock Purdy, which they should be able to. Van Ginkel, Turner, whoever they blitz, in addition, Grenard, they should be able to stop Purdy from sitting back and picking apart the Vikings' zone defense. On the other side of the ball, Darnold looked great week 1, had that one fluky interception off a tip, but found Jefferson where he needed to, found Addison where he needed to, found Josh Oliver where he needed to, opened up things on the ground. Aaron Jones, dominant versus the 49ers in last year's playoff game. Now, he's going up against a much worse 49ers interior defensive line behind a much better Vikings offensive line. He should have a pretty good day. Christian Darrisaw pitched a shutout against Kayvon Thibodeau week 1, pitched a shutout against Nick Bosa when he played him last year. That is a matchup I'm going to look forward to watching. What this game's going to come down to, though, as I say all these good things about both teams, I think both offenses should be able to score the ball effectively. If Addison is on the field, that adds a verticality to the Vikings offense, which the 49ers have to respect, which opens up the short game for guys like Jones, Jefferson, Oliver to really take advantage of. Granted, they'll be taking advantage of it against Fred Warner, so maybe not the best possible matchup, but I digress. If Addison plays, Vikings offense scores 30-plus points. I don't think the 49ers offense will be able to keep up given the lack of cohesion with Ayuk. If Ayuk looks much better, if CMC does play somehow, or Mason dictates contact every single time, yeah, the 49ers are running away with this one. I'll throw the Vikings in there as an upset, though. I'm sure my co-host has many incorrect and woefully hateful opinions about the Vikings, he just watched them stomp all over the Giants season in week 1.
Well, last week the 49ers reminded the Jets that they don't belong at the adult dinner table, and I know you Vikings fans were given some false hope last week. Congratulations.
Hey,
you looked good against the New York Giants, a team that doesn't have a quarterback that's capable of being a high-level starter in the NFL. That you're talking about all this cohesion, the Giants have zero cohesion on the offensive side of the ball, and some may argue they don't have much cohesion on the defensive side of the ball with a new defensive coordinator.
So
and now you're playing a 49ers team that absolutely humbled the Jets last week, and they are going to do the same thing to this Vikings unit. You're playing a high-powered passing attack that's able to push the ball down the field to a Brandon Ayuk, to a Debo Samuel. We thought Christian McCaffrey missing was going to matter. That didn't last week against a good Jets defense, and this Viking defense, while it may be solid and maybe an average to above average unit in the NFL, is not going to be able to hang with this 49ers offense. It's not the same thing as playing the New York Giants. So the Vikings, they are going to be humbled in this one. If there's any Vikings fans out there, like it seems Isaiah thinks, apparently he thinks they have a chance at winning 11 games. Not going to happen. Vikings are going to be kicked back down to the bottom of the stairs of the NFC, and the 49ers are going to win.
So just to be clear, I'm going to hold you to say it's going to be a blowout.
It's going to be a blowout.
Okay, good. I wanted that on camera. It's not going to be a blowout. I am fairly confident about that. Unless Sam Darnold begins seeing ghosts once again, it's not happening. You talk about the elite Jets defense. I know the number on the screen tells you they're not an elite Jets defense. The final score, if you watch that game, you can tell the D linemen were not getting moving. They were not firing off the ball. The linebackers were just kind of standing there watching Jordan Mason bear down upon them. That did not look anything like the Jets defense we saw last year. That has a lot more to do with them than it did with the 49ers. But we'll see. I do not have absolute faith in the Vikings because, again, Jordan Addison might not play. If he doesn't, yeah, the Vikings are going to lose. But I got a lot more faith than most, and a lot more faith than you, clearly.
Next game, the Patriots got away with one in week 1, playing a Bengals team that had the weird Jamar Chase contract holdout situation. Apparently, he was also sick. Joe Burrow coming off that injury to his throwing hand. Videos of him on the sideline struggling to pick up a water bottle. So who knows what's truly going on there? And they're playing a Seahawks team that has a defense that's been reinvigorated by Mike McDonald. They looked a lot better in week 1 last season. The run defense should be better. The pass rush should be better. And on the offensive side of the ball, they have as much talent as anyone else in the league, and it just depends on how much you like Geno Smith. They have Kenneth Walker, who has quietly been one of the best running backs in the NFL, and JSN, DK Metcalf, while the production wasn't there in week 1, that happened to be Tyler Lockett. They're two of the more talented wide receivers, and maybe one of the most talented wide receiver trios in the NFL. So I'm picking the Seahawks to win this one against the Patriots team that, isn't all that great.
Kenneth Walker's been real quiet in being one of the best running backs in the NFL. So quiet, I'm not seeing people put him in their top 10. Yeah, Chase was sick, all right. He was 6. He had Christian Gonzalez draped over him all game. Gonzalez is capable of locking up pretty much any wide receiver besides the very best one-on-one in-man for long stretches. Unfortunately, you cannot do that to the Seahawks because they got Lockett, Jason, and Metcalf. I'd imagine they probably stick Gonzalez on Metcalf given he is a bigger frame, a physical freak, to go up there and compensate for DK Metcalf's innate physical freakiness. But that still leaves JSN and Lockett and Walker, who may not be playing actually, he's got an oblique injury, to wreak havoc on the Patriots defense. The Seahawks were a lot harder to run on than I thought they'd be thanks to the acquisition of Byron Murphy. The way he drops his knee to the ground, fights off double teams, he is an immediate upgrade over what they had last year. That is going to greatly hinder Ramondre Stevenson, stop him from picking up the head of steam he was using to bludgeon the Bengals, and really make that offense not one-dimensional, because I don't think they're going to have any dimensions. They are a perfectly flat, non-existent thing. The Patriots have a zero-dimensional offense. They are not going to score more than 15 points against the Seahawks. As for liking Geno Smith or not, clearly the Seahawks don't like him, or they wouldn't have brought in Sam Howell to have a quarterback battle, even if they're not calling it that.
They didn't have a quarterback battle.
Yeah, and had a quarterback battle. Yeah, he stinks it up a few more times, then suddenly, oh wait. I don't know if you paid close attention to that one last week, but dear God did he look bad. The Seahawks defense looked elite because they were playing Bo Nix, but Geno Smith did not rise to that occasion. A competent quarterback wins that game by 20 plus points instead of 6 points.
I don't know, man. That run was pretty impressive. You're hating on a Pro Bowler.
Hating on a Pro Bowler. You want to go back and look through the list of Pro Bowl quarterbacks.
Mac Jones.
Who is the Ravens dude who had more?
Tyler Huntley.
Tyler Huntley. Do we have Tyler Huntley on a team anywhere? Is he still employed? Speaking of employment, Robert Saleh might be out of a job if the Jets lose this game. This is going to be the worst game of the week in my opinion. Certainly the lowest scoring. In Tennessee, Titans hosting the Jets. It's going to be raining. Both these offenses looked terrible in week 1. Defensively, we know the Jets are talented and can be good. They did not look good week 1. And the Titans, they looked very solid defensively. Their defense was not why they lost that game. So, absolute rock fight one way or the other. Ultimately, I look at how Caleb Williams played, the throws he missed against this Titans team. The opportunities were there. Maybe he created some which Rodgers wouldn't due to his lack of mobility, but there were deep balls which Aaron Rodgers hits, which Caleb Williams just didn't against the Titans. I think Rodgers can get this Jets offense to 14, 15 points, even though they've not gelled together, even though they've got turnover issues, even though he's old and can't move around. He can get them on the board. And frankly, after last week, maybe it's an anomaly. I'm inclined to predict based off what I saw. I don't know if the Titans are going to be on the board at all. That was a bad offensive showing. The surrender Cobra being out in force week 1 on Will Levis, it broke me. It hurts my soul to see a young mayonnaise enjoyer like that on his knees on the ground, getting his back blown out by the Chicago defense. A rough showing all around. Probably going to bounce back. I'm being a bit over dramatic. He'll be fine, but give me the Jets.
Backpedal.
Give me the Jets in a relatively close game.
This is an interesting game for me to predict because I've been very negative when commenting on both of these teams. And heading into this game, I hold many of the same feelings that you do. I think there's a path to victory for each of these teams. All the Jets defense needs to do is make Will Levis make stupid mistakes, which we saw in week 1 Will Levis is prone to doing. What the Titans need to do is that they need to force an immobile Aaron Rodgers to try and move around the pocket, which he's not able to do at this point, and their defense will be successful. And then they also need Will Levis to not make any stupid mistakes.
I also need to not give up a free play because that was about the only way the Jets could score last week.
And I'm more inclined to believe that the Jets are going to be able to make Will Levis make those stupid mistakes. And as Isaiah mentioned, there were guys open for Caleb Williams. So I feel confident that Aaron Rodgers is going to be able to hit 1 to 2 throws deep down the field. They'll be able to score at least 2 touchdowns, maybe another field goal in there. And then their defense will put them in position where they're already in field goal range to get a few more field goals, 1 or 2. So I feel pretty good about the Jets scoring 21 points. I'm not sure the Titans get past 10 points, so I think the Jets win that one. I don't even want to make a prediction for this game because it hurts to watch the Commanders have the most electric player on the field. But both of these teams are bad. Over the previous 2 seasons, the Commanders haven't beaten the Giants, and the Giants have remained victorious, or the game wound up in a tie each time. So the history's on the Giants side. The Commanders having one of the worst defenses in the NFL is on the Giants side, but the Giants have a completely incompetent quarterback. Unless they decide midway through the first quarter to insert Drew Lock or insert Tommy DeVito.
Isn't Drew Lock still hurt?
I do not believe so.
Oh, Lord, we might get the Drew Lock show.
The Giants might have a chance of beating this inexperienced Commanders team with a bad defense, but I'm just not feeling all that optimistic. I think given the fact the Commanders will have the most electric player on the field being Jaden Daniels, he'll break a few long runs, he'll make a few big splash plays, and I think the Commanders win this one at home.
Not a big Malik Neighbors guy all of a sudden. Having Daniel Jones throw to him 1 week really took you down a few pegs. The most electric player on the field, if Jaden Daniels is on the field, will of course be Dexter Lawrence. You New Yorkers with your small brains can't quite appreciate the specimen he is on the inside. But this is the stoppable force taking on the movable object. This is the horrible Giants offense taking on the putrid Commanders defense. Any other team would score 30 points on this Commanders squad. The Giants might be able to get 20. If I'm being generous. 20 feels generous. They just can't do anything offensively. And maybe that is a great defensive mind in Brian Flores, dialing up a ton of exotic blitzes and putting pressure on Jones and shaking his confidence early. Maybe that doesn't happen this week. Maybe old man Bobby Wagner in coverage just gets burnt by a running back out of the backfield, or somehow gets Malik Neighbors switched onto him and gets barbecued for a 50-yard touchdown. Jaden Daniels, most electric quarterback, sure, whatever. He's going to make mistakes. He is a rookie. He avoided a lot of those mistakes last week. Got lucky in avoiding them. Had a ball thrown backwards behind the line of scrimmage, which B-Rob was able to kick out of bounds, which should have been a fumble recovered by the Buccaneers. He has shown a proneness to throw inaccurate balls. When pressured, which presumably they'll be able to generate pressure with Thibodeau, Burns, and Lawrence, he will make a mistake. He will turn the ball over. He will give the Giants the ball in amazing starting field position. If that will be enough for the Giants offense, I don't know. Who'd you predict to win this one?
The Commanders.
You predicted the Commanders? Yeah, I'm picking the Giants. I'm feeling generous. I think the Giants win 1 game in the NFC East this year, and looking at their schedule, it's got to be this one. It's just got to be. It can't be any other.
So the Vikings
when Jaden Daniels gets a little bit more experience, he is going to destroy this defense. But as a true young buck, I think they maybe get one on them.
So the Vikings take care of business week 1 against the Giants, but now you're throwing me a bone.
I'm throwing you. I mean, that wasn't really What was I supposed to say week 1? What was I supposed to say?
No, I'm saying this week you're throwing me a bone.
It's not even throwing you a bone. It's just I have a hard time imagining them going completely defeated against the NFC East. Maybe they can do it. If they lose this game, they'll do it. They ain't beating the Cowboys. They ain't beating the Eagles. Now, if they lose to the Commanders with Jane Daniels as inexperienced as he is, unless MetLife Turf gets him when he goes to New York, it's a bad show, man. It might be time to hang up the Giants fandom for a while. Go cheer for the Jets or something. Go cheer for the Panthers.
The Jets are worse.
Your two other they are not worse. Your two other options are the Jets if you want to be loyal to your home city, or you can root for the hometown team of the Panthers. A litany of good choices.
Well, they're bad according to you, they're bad to have the same record as the Jets. So I don't know how much worse they actually are.
Are we gauging all teams by one? Is the worst team in the National Football League by default going to be 0-2 next week?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice little voice crack there, buddy.
Anyway.
You're not the one driving the bus on this next one, son. Pipe down. The Rams are headed on over to Arizona to take on the Cardinals. And when I looked at this game, I was initially shocked by the fact the Cardinals are actually favored to win. It's only by 1 point, but they're still favored to win. Then I looked at it a bit deeper. Obviously, the Rams missing Puka Nacua. They had some receivers step up big last week, but that offense will undoubtedly be limited in his absence. They did not run the ball well on the ground. Kyren Williams, not an effective runner, couldn't get much going in between the tackles, not overly explosive, could not create contact as a runner on the second level. Had 50 yards on 18 carries. Didn't use Blake Corum at all for whatever reason. Probably could have. Maybe would have won that game if they did last week. Flip that around. The Cardinals, very good run defense in my opinion. It stopped the run better than most people give them credit for. Yeah, they let Josh Allen jump over them. That's Josh Allen. It comes to the territory of playing Josh Allen. He will put his nuts on your head once every few weeks. They can run the ball very well though. The Cardinals, James Conner, very efficient runner. Effective near the goal line. Kyler Murray, great runner of the football at the quarterback position. One of the best scramblers in the league. They will be able to keep things moving on the ground. This game will not take long. The Cardinals are running it a lot. Flip that around. The Rams should be able to exploit the Cardinals secondary. Their pass rush, not quite there yet in the second year of Gannon. But they are going to be fairly predictable. They are not going to air the ball. They're going to keep things within 10 yards or less. And the Cardinals know that, so they're going to key in on it. They're going to break up those short passes. They're going to tackle Cooper Kupp or whoever else may get the ball before he reaches that first down mark. They're going to make this game nice and quick. It is going to be a low-scoring affair. And in low-scoring affairs, looking at the Cardinals, I think I favor them. It doesn't matter if Kyler Murray is refusing to throw the ball to Marvin Harrison Jr. It doesn't matter if he is crashing Trey McBride's fantasy value. None of that matters when it comes to winning. And the Cardinals win close, low-scoring games historically, which is why I'm picking them to beat the Rams this week.
Well, everything I'm about to say about the Rams will sound like I'm pessimistic about them. I'm still pretty optimistic that they are going to be a playoff team, that they're going to get around 9 to 10 wins, even with all the injuries they have just sustained. I mean, it feels like their entire offensive line got injured. Puka Nacua is guaranteed to be out for 4 weeks. And heading into this game, they don't have a lot of people they thought they would have in week 2 heading into the season. And then you have a Cardinals team that took on the Buffalo Bills, were winning in the first half of that game. It looked like they'd even get out of there with a victory, and then Josh Allen happened. So playing a Rams team that is struggling with injuries, your offense has a healthy Kyler Murray, who looked very solid in week 1. Didn't look spectacular, but looked solid. I also think the Cardinals are going to win this one, and I do not care if Marvin Harrison looked slower than dirt in week 1, like all the people on Twitter are memeing him. We have to assume that was some anomaly, and he's going to be fine throughout the rest of the season and in week 2. So I'm picking the Cardinals to win. It's also a home game, so that helps things to a certain
that
extent.
Notoriously loud Cardinals fan base is really going to show up. Maybe Marvin Harrison Jr. was playing on that Brazilian turf and no one else was. Hard to say one way or the other. I'm surprised you are picking the Cardinals. You are such a Rams homer. You're having them start 0-2 and still somehow making the playoffs. I don't know. Those two ideas don't really
The Giants
connect.
went 0-2 and won a Super Bowl. So
they're calling Matthew Stafford Eli Manning.
Some might say.
Well, one of them deserves to be in the Hall of Fame and one will be.
Okay. However you feel about Justin Fields or Russell Wilson, I've been very negative about the Steelers. Isaiah's been very negative about Bo Nix. I've been more positive about Bo Nix. The only thing the Steelers need Justin Fields or Russell Wilson to do is be efficient. Last week, I think Justin Fields only had 6 incompletions. He ran the ball pretty well, had about 56 yards on the ground, and they were able to outlast a Falcons team that had Kirk Cousins, who didn't produce because of likely his Achilles injury. And now they're playing a Broncos team that has a rookie quarterback, not that much talent surrounding him. I think TJ Watt will take care of business there. And as long as Justin Fields doesn't turn the ball over, or Russell Wilson, if he happens to sneak into the lineup later in the week, I think the Steelers will be fine.
Here's the beauty of the Justin Fields experience. You go back and look at his throw chart. He attempted 0 passes over the middle of the field. Part of that might be due to the Falcons' elite safeties. Whatever. He is not going to attack you up the middle. He is going to follow the game plan, stick outside, and apparently not make a ton of mistakes, which I was a little bit surprised by. That speaks very poorly of Chicago coaching or very highly of Steelers offensive coaching in that he did not screw up and cost the Steelers at any point against the Falcons. That was a losable game. They didn't score a touchdown. They only got field goals, and they still managed to win because they did not shoot themselves in the foot and let their defense win. You flip that around, Bo Nix was appalling. Every pass over 10 yards he threw, actually not every pass, I'll be accurate, threw 10 passes longer than 10 yards. 2 were completed. 2 were completed to the other team, and 6 went incomplete. He is not an NFL quarterback. He is a checkdown system merchant, as we saw at Oregon and as we are seeing in the NFL. Each week we watch a Bo Nix, I'll be proven more and more right. This is no exception. This is a bad matchup for any rookie quarterback, let alone a 25-year-old rookie quarterback who does not belong in the National Football League. I predict the Steelers' defense to outscore the Broncos' offense. There is no Geno Smith to let the other team back in the game on this one. I think Pittsburgh will smoke them. Maybe it's not a high-scoring game. Maybe it's 7-0 for all I know. Maybe it's 2-0 because the Steelers can't do anything offensively and TJ Watt records a massive safety. I don't care. The Steelers are dominating Bo Nix, dominating Sean Payton, and starting Denver's new era 0-2.
Winning 7-0 or 2-0 is not smoking them.
Well, look, you got smoked if you scored 0 points. That's what I'll say. When the Vikings beat the Raiders by 3 points in a 3-0 masterclass last year, I would argue the Raiders got smoked. Spiritually smoked, that is. I digress.
Okay.
Heading on over to Arrowhead Stadium, we've got the mighty Chiefs hosting the Cincinnati Bengals. And I hope Jamar Chase has been pounding his Tums, has been flushing his system, had a little applesauce, maybe a little ginger ale. I hope T. Higgins is on the field. I want them at full strength for when they lose. That will be the best possible outcome. I want no excuses for this. Say what you want about this Chiefs team. Say they only scored because of blown coverage and gadget plays last week against the Ravens. This Bengals defense is not in the same stratosphere as the Ravens defense, in my opinion. They're going to get cooked, barbecued, filleted, sauteed, deep fried perhaps. Many cooking options will be presented and used, and Andy Reid, the master chef that he is, the culinary artist that he is, will take advantage of every possible weakness. And there are many of this Bengals team. If you lose to the Patriots, I might predict you to lose every single game. I have not done a bigger 180 on any team in the history of this show than I am doing on the Cincinnati Bengals. I was saying Joe Burrow was going to be an MVP candidate. I guess he can't control his tight ends not catching the ball in the end zone, then fumbling it on the 1-yard line. That's not his fault. Sure, still looked terrible against a bad Patriots team. Gotta be better. And until he shows he can be better, I'll predict him to be as bad as possible. Offensively with the Chiefs, I mean, what do you want me to say? They got better weapons. They can actually run the ball up the middle. We saw what Zach Moss looked like trying to run by those Bengals guards and center. That was a mess. It's just, there's nothing the Bengals are better at than the Chiefs. I'm doing my best to hammer this point. If I had to make I'm not going to call it a lock. I don't believe in locks. Locks are for doors, not picks. But this game's going to be pretty one-sided.
Maybe there's some people that will convince themselves the Bengals can win this game because they view Joe Burrow as the Chiefs and Mahomes slayer, albeit that argument is flawed, but we don't need to get into that right now. But you said everything already. The Bengals defense is worse than it's been. Their offense does not seem to be operating at the typical level we see from the Bengals offense. Maybe Jamar Chase is still getting into the swing of things. T. Higgins, they don't have Joe Mixon, who has kind of been a staple of that Bengals offense, and Zach Moss is trying to fill that role. And then you have a Chiefs team that have more electric weapons than they've ever had. The defense seems to be just as good as it was last season. Hasn't really taken a step back, especially that pass rush. So in Arrowhead, This should be an easy game for the Chiefs. You talked about it being a lock. I am calling it a lock. It is for sure going to happen. That won't backfire on me. The Chiefs are winning. I want the Bears and Caleb Williams to be really good right away, but after week 1, it is going to take some time for that to happen. They're taking on the Texans, and the Texans are what the Bears are trying to be and what I think they will be eventually. They have the elite young quarterback. They have the trio of elite receiving weapons. They have the offensive line. They have 2 elite edge rushers, and the Bears on all those levels aren't quite there yet to the level that the Texans are. The Texans have reached a level of cohesion. They have an identity on offense. Their defense has an identity. They are a just all-around better, more experienced team that is coming off of a playoff run. So Caleb Williams is still growing as an NFL passer, as an NFL player, and I think the Texans, with all experience, having what I would say is a talent advantage, are going to win.
The only good thing you can say about Caleb Williams' week 1 performance is he did not turn the ball over. Less than 100 passing yards, looked terrible under pressure, took stupid sacks, which people like myself are saying, look, you run around with your back turned to the defensive line, it's not going to work in the NFL. They're going to catch you. They were catching him. Jeffrey Simmons did not get to taunt him over his painted nails, and Bears fans are very proud of that. Well, the perfect record, the rookie historic precedence, the number 1 overall pick stuff, whatever. It stops here. Texans are blowing them out. Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter will spit roast this man in the pocket. He is not going to have a good time. Maybe you can get some salvation from half a good tackle duo, but even if you do, pressure is coming up the middle. Pressure is coming from the linebackers. Pressure is coming on all sides, and if you throw a ball up in the air like you did against the Titans, it's not going to harmlessly kiss off the ground. A safety is going to pick that sucker off and crib it. I don't need to go into what the Texans are offensively. We watched Joe Mixon dominate behind their offensive line, establish himself as an elite running back, prove it was the Bengals holding him back, not vice versa. Could do that again. They could throw the ball 50 times and win that way. They've got options. Probably a bit of a balance one way or the other, but they will smoke this Bears defense. Texans are going to blow them out thanks to a lack of offensive production from Caleb Williams and the Bears. Our last game of the week, Monday Night Football. And I could boil this game down to a few things. If I was being really pessimistic on Kirk and really simple, I'd say it's a road game at Philadelphia in primetime and leave it as my prediction there and say the Eagles would win. But I'll be more generous. A lot is being made of Kirk Cousins and his surgically repaired Achilles. I personally do not read too much into it. It was his first game back, sustaining serious pressure and contact from TJ Watt and that Steelers front seven. He's always had kind of a funky throwing motion. People freaking out about what he's doing in Atlanta. We're not watching him air it out in Minnesota. It's not that different. So maybe ease up on him a bit. If he still looks terrible mechanically going into week 3, then we can have those awkward conversations. But his Achilles won't matter. The Eagles are better at everything offensively. Their O-line is better. They've got better receiving weapons. Jalen Hurts is a better passer of the football, certainly a better runner of the football. And as high as I am on Bijan, I think I would rather have Saquon running behind the Eagles' offensive line than I would him running behind the Falcons' O-line. Falcons have a good O-line, don't get me wrong, but the Eagles is one of the best. You flip that over, Falcons defense played very well. You can attribute that to Justin Fields being unable to attack the middle of the field, a lackluster interior O-line on the Steelers, whatever. They can still force stops. They can still maybe turn the ball over. We didn't see it week 1, but surely it's in the cards. And presumably they can hinder the run a little bit. I just don't think it'll be enough. I don't see the Falcons offense bouncing back enough after a disastrous first week to threaten the Eagles at any point in this game. Maybe it's close right out of the gates. After that, though, I just think the Eagles pull away with one due to an excess of talent. If there is a weakness which was not capitalized on by the Falcons facing another elite defense last week, is the weakness on the interior of the Eagles' defensive line. Jalen Carter has not been tested except for when he is tackling Jordan Love and popping his knee out of socket. They could run the ball inside behind Lindstrom, those elite guards, that quality center. If Bijan grounds this one out, keeps the game short, keeps the clock moving, maybe the Falcons have a shot. I don't think that'll happen. I think the Eagles know where they're weak and will commit a lot of resources to plug that hole, and Bijan will be limited. But if there's a path to victory, that's it. But give me the Eagles. I say a lot to say this, circle back to a road game at Philadelphia in primetime with Kirk Cousins as your quarterback. You're not going to win that game.
Maybe they'd have a shot if Kirk Cousins was able to go under center, which he proved he wasn't able to do in week 1. Everything was out of pistol, everything was out of shotgun, and then he also did not look quite like his old self pushing the ball down the field. So when you have that going for the Falcons, I'm not overly optimistic that they're going to be able to compete with a team like the Eagles in week 2. It is going to take some time for Kirk Cousins, whatever's going on with his Achilles and this offense, to completely gel. And you're playing an Eagles team that has Saquon Barkley that is capable of taking over the game, scoring 3 touchdowns. And then if they're stopping Saquon Barkley, they can throw a 10-yard curl route to A.J. Brown, who then takes it for another 40 yards, and then they can throw it to Devonta Smith. There's too much talent on this Eagles offense, even if Jalen Hurts makes a mistake here or there, where they are going to score more points than the team they're playing against. And with Quinyon Mitchell, who had some very good plays in week 1, this secondary is better than it was last year. So even if Kirk Cousins is able to regain some of his best play in week 2, I don't think they're going to be able to beat this Eagles team on the road. I don't see it happening. The Eagles are going to win.
I'm a bit curious what the Eagles look like outside of a Brazilian soccer field, because that played a real factor, both to their positive and the negative. We saw Jalen Hurts slip and throw that interception. We saw A.J. Brown slip and let a Packers defender get back into play and pick the ball off. They could be much better, but the opposing offenses could also be a lot better, and that Quinyon Mitchell stuff could be an apparition. We will have to wait and see what they look like in week 2.
That has been our predictions for week 2 of NFL action. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, use code Thicc on Underdog. You can get bonus cash up to $1,000. Participate in their weekly fantasy contest, participate in their pick'ems contests, and we will see you in the next one.